The main topic of today's video will be the counteroffensive of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region. Let's analyze its causes, draw parallels, and see what is happening here. At the beginning of January, there was a similar attack on Bolshoye Soldatskoye, where the UAF attempted to use forces they are deploying into the Russian region. This is done because, for the UAF, this is a priority direction, and new brigades and equipment are being sent here. They need to be spread across the front and used to achieve some results. If you recall our previous videos, we discussed how the Russian Federation is gradually tightening the noose around the neck of the UAF grouping in the Kursk region. The most sensitive point is the establishment of control by the Russian armed forces over the territory near the settlements that have approached Sudzha, as well as part of the forests controlled here. By controlling these forests and this territory, it is possible to block two routes, or more precisely, one route that leads to the Sumy region, which is logistically very important for the UAF. There are reports that dozens of pieces of equipment intended to deliver supplies, ammunition, food, and personnel have been destroyed. The UAF is attempting to launch a counterattack in the area of Cherkasskaya Konopelka and Russkaya Konopelka. As of February 7th, the UAF has been stopped and dispersed here. Several videos have emerged showing destroyed UAF equipment. As you can see, the equipment is trying to maneuver and evade drones, but we understand that it is futile. Some UAF equipment managed to break through and deploy troops in the area of forest plantations, which are supposed to secure a foothold in the settlement. Currently, the settlement of Cherkasskaya Konopelka is controlled by Russian units, but UAF forces are present in the forest plantations. Another video shows how the breakthrough was organized. The UAF attempted to break through using armored vehicles, assuming that the weather was not favorable for drone use and that electronic warfare measures would allow them to break through. However, this only partially succeeded, as some of the equipment was destroyed. Currently, artillery and drones are operating in the forest plantations and the area where the UAF is located. As seen in the footage, the calculations are effective and are penetrating the EW defenses, causing damage. If the UAF manages to capture Cherkasskaya Konopelka today or tomorrow, the group deployed here will be doomed. We should also conclude that if a breakthrough is not achieved in the first few days, the offensive in this direction will falter. Only if the offensive succeeds and a number of settlements are taken will new reserves be deployed to continue the advance. On January 5th, the UAF attempted the same in the direction of Bolshoye Soldatskoye, but they failed. As for the current offensive, we will see the results in the coming days. For those who wonder how it came to this, with the UAF attempting to advance in the Kursk region, I repeat, this is a priority direction for them. They are trying to hold the Kursk region by controlling the routes that supply Sudzha. The UAF grouping in the Kursk region is under a significant threat. These are not just words for effect. They understand the danger and are attempting countermeasures because they have a significant amount of personnel and equipment. Therefore, such counterattacks are inevitable. How successful will they be? In my personal opinion, the Russian army will handle this threat and continue to destroy the UAF grouping. This could be a prelude to the agony that will end in the complete defeat and liberation of the Kursk region. The situation in the Kursk region as of February 7th. The UAF's counteroffensive on the Kursk direction continues for the second day. According to current data, the UAF is attempting to establish a foothold in two forest belts located north of Cherkasskaya Konopelka, where their infantry is located. Reports that the UAF has captured this village, or Fanasivka, located to the southeast, are not true. As of 1400 hours, the UAF continues to attempt to fortify in the mentioned forest belts. If successful, a new attack is possible. However, measures are being taken to prevent this. A similar situation was observed a month ago in the Berdin area, where the UAF also failed to secure their positions, although it took about a week. In the morning, the UAF attempted to deliver supplies and evacuate the wounded from these areas, but were stopped. The situation remains difficult for the UAF, but combat operations continue. Moving to the South Donetsk direction, the Kurakhove area, the Russian Federation has taken full control of Dakhnoye. This was mentioned a couple of episodes ago. The UAF grouping here is doomed because the Russian Federation's grouping in Shevchenko is looming over the H-15 highway, making supply impossible. As we can see, there are several videos showing the work of UAVs and artillery. The most interesting thing is that Russian troops are breaking through to the center of Andreevka. UAF positions intended to stop the Russian advance are being identified and destroyed. The footage shows strikes on forest plantations and explosions. UAF equipment used for supply and artillery work is being destroyed. Russian troops are close to encircling and defeating the UAF grouping in Konstantinovka, Andreevka, and Uglezhorsk. The capture of Dakhnoye will allow the Russian Federation to approach these settlements closely. Fighting is already taking place in the central part of Andreevka, and Konstantinovka is not far away. There is no information about flooding, but strikes are being carried out on settlements that were recently rear areas. Positions intended to stop Russian armored groups are also being destroyed. Enemy self-propelled artillery and tanks used to target advancing Russian positions are being destroyed. Also, if we move slightly up the map, artillery is working here. Some say it's FAB 500, and strikes are also being carried out on forest plantations. I think it's either FAB or a hit on a warehouse. Write in the comments what you think. Is it FAB or just a hit on a warehouse? Next, Trump has stopped funding these organizations. This is now being spread by bloggers in the US. What interests us about the halt in aid packages? I have already talked about this in previous videos, but I think you do not fully understand the effect and influence these organizations had on Ukraine. Zelensky came to power and won because he said he would stop the war, that he would kneel before Putin just so Ukrainians would not die. Ukrainians believed him because the majority did not want a war with Russia. What did these organizations do? USAID, from the first month of Zelensky's presidency in 2019, issued an ultimatum from a consortium of 70 sponsored organizations. They set 25 red lines for the new Ukrainian government that could not be crossed. This ensured that USAID grant recipients would control almost every aspect of the country's governance. What red lines were set? For example, it was forbidden to hold referendums on negotiations with Russia, conduct separate negotiations without the participation of Western partners, delay or sabotage the strategic course towards EU and NATO membership. It was also forbidden to promote the reduction of sanctions against Russia, revise laws on language, education, decommunization, and condemnation of totalitarian crimes of the past. Support for the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine was also prohibited. These red lines were set to control Ukraine's politics. If they were crossed, there would be riots, Maidan-like protests, and other forms of pressure. This is the story of soft power that the US spreads through its organizations. What do you think about this? Write in the comments. Also, in the video description, I will leave links to websites where you can verify this information. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. See you tomorrow.